Hi, everybody. So today we are lucky enough to have Julie Larson here, who is going to be talking about facing scan anxiety and finding your way. Julie described today's talk as living with uncertainty is one of the harshest realities of a cancer diagnosis. Waiting for scan results or feeling the fear of recurrence are examples of common challenges survivors find difficult to navigate. While it may be unrealistic to think the feeling of uncertainty will completely go away, join us as we learn about how to discuss strategies to tame the anxiety and find your footing one day at a time. And Julie's background is that she's trained in cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy, mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, and nonviolent communication. She's also informed by narrative therapy, positive psychology, and spirituality and mental health. Julie, we are so thrilled to have you, and the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jillian. It's nice to be here today. Hello to everyone that's out there. I see your names. Some of you, I see your faces. I love seeing faces. And I know that those are not going to be part of the recording. So if you want to unplug, it makes me feel like we're all in the same room together. But to that end too, I'm going to encourage you all to use the chat. Okay. So maybe you don't want your voice and your words to be part of this recording, but I'm going to keep my eyes on that chat. And sometimes in talks, people present and leave time for a Q&A. I guess I kind of feel like if things start coming up for you or you're thinking as we're talking, then put it out there and I'll keep my eye on it. And maybe I'll start having a conversation with you within that chat. Okay. So we'll go with that. I know that this topic is a big one. So I've spent the entirety of my career sitting with people impacted by a cancer diagnosis. And often what walks them in my door is the unsettledness around uncertainty and fear related to living your day-to-day life. And how is this cancer going to continue to hijack the road ahead? So I think there's a lot of different ways to approach that. We're going to talk about this a little bit in that cognitive behavioral mindset. So let's get moving. And I might stop from time to time and just come back to you and see how everybody's doing. And again, I welcome anything in the chat. I'll keep my eyes peeled there. And in fact, I might ask you questions from time to time. Okay, Scanxiety. So this picture to me is just like kind of a roadmap of what might be in your brain, all the different things that could be thinking about what's next, pills, tumor, chemotherapy, cancer nation, all these different places, surgery, intent, prolonging your life, all these different pieces that might be part of that. Fatigue, nausea, side effects. What is Scanxiety? Can we just name this? Because let's define what in the heck we're talking about so we're all on the same page. I think of Scanxiety as the experience of distress leading up to a follow-up scan. So a scan that might be like a routine checkpoint within your treatment, or a scan that might be post-treatment as you circle back to the doctor to continue to follow up your care and to see how you're doing as you heal and recover. Normal feelings that are related to that experience of Scanxiety are fear, worry, uncertainty, irritability, impatience, emotional fragility, right? So you may not say, hey, I don't know that I'm exactly feeling fear or worry, but I do notice that I'm on edge and I don't have as much patience with my life, or like I'm very sensitive in those days leading up. And it might be helpful to know that while that doesn't feel great or feel comfortable, it's absolutely normal. It's an understandable experience to have. It's predictable. So many survivors predictably feel that those feelings build for them as that appointment date draws near. In fact, sometimes people talk to me about living in 3-month chunks of time or 6-month chunks of time, depending on when your follow-up scans are. They have a scan, they walk out of that appointment, God willing, knocking on wood, feeling great, feeling confident, feeling secure. And that feeling, that kind of afterglow of that appointment lasts for a period of time and then dampens. And then slowly that feeling of worry and uncertainty builds until we get to those days leading into the scan where it feels particularly intense. And then we begin again. So I don't know if that resonates or that matches for you, but if so, I hear that from many, many people. Oftentimes, Scanxiety includes unhelpful thoughts that serve to fuel that distress. So that's when all the what ifs begin to circle in your mind, right? That narrative, those movies or those tapes that start to roll that contribute to the fear, contribute to the worry, right? And all of this experience can negatively impact your sleep, makes it more restless, harder to fall asleep, harder to stay asleep, your appetite, right? Whether you're mindlessly eating or you're just not hungry and so you're not giving your body what it needs, relationships that can make us feel tense and irritable and more distant and more constricted. Your attention, your focus might be really hard to nail down in those days, right? So again, if this slide is resonating for you and you're experiencing any of that, that's very normal. You're right on track. Okay, what do we do about it? Triggering PTSD symptoms. Okay, so one more slide about this. So people talk a lot about cancer and the normative emotional and mental impact of a diagnosis. A lot of the feelings that I just said. Depression is high for cancer survivors. Clinical anxiety. We use the words depression and anxiety a lot in our world, but clinical depression, clinical anxiety, diagnosed and treated with medication or other treatments are more common in cancer survivors. Right? PTSD is also a common diagnosis, right? And what studies have shown that 4 to 22% of cancer survivors risk developing PTSD. The way I think about PTSD is that your two individuals could meet the same stressor. Oh, hello, welcome. Two individuals could meet the same stressor, and one of those people somehow navigates that and uses all their coping skills and their coping strengths and they're able, while it's not easy, they're able to find their way. While somebody else, it completely overwhelms their capacity to cope. And then that leaves them in a much more fragile space. And then things can trigger that feeling again. That's kind of where we experience trauma. Those with more pain, advanced cancer, ever suffered other types of trauma in your history are more at risk for that. PTSD includes intrusive thoughts, irritability, sleeplessness, which interfere with quality of life and daily function. So if you're having recurring thoughts that kind of flash back and bring you back to tricky moments or traumatic moments, that would be something with PTSD, different than anxiety, which is just more ruminating around a worry. PTSD is like, this one thing takes me back there and leaves me hijacked and very intense, like I'm in a state of fight or flight. Symptoms can cause patients to avoid places that remind them of events and cause delay in follow-up care. So if you're like, as you're talking, it's making me think that I do really experience acute stress, and it makes me not want to go to that particular office, or I have a hard time walking down that street, or it's very difficult for me to think about connecting with that one particular nurse because of that one hard treatment. If those things are coming up for you, then I want you to be able to talk about that with your doctor and explore that and what we can do to help soften those symptoms. That's the difference between PTSD and anxiety. I'm going to take a quick look at my chat. I can see that there's some stuff there. So it looks like it's resonating for people. Every appointment does it to some degree for me. Yeah. And so again, I definitely resonate. I also get these feelings with each blood test post-treatment. Okay. So what I'm hearing from some of you is that, yeah, hey, this is matching. I do feel that in that spin. So we're going to talk about some strategies. I'm going to just keep my chat right over here so I can keep an eye on that. Okay. As we talk the rest of today, and I'm looking at my clock, and I think we've got about 45 more minutes. I'm going to structure our thinking today in 3 buckets. Okay. So as you think about your experience in coping, I want you to think about your thinking. So the stories and the thoughts that are running through your mind, your emotion, which is the feelings that you have, the emotional feelings that you have, fear, overwhelm, worry, self-doubt, insecurity, irritation, loneliness, overwhelmed. I might have already said that. That's a big one. Okay. Those are emotions, right? And then I want you to also think about Are you aware of where you feel stress in your physical body? I don't know who you are. You're all different. Some people feel stress like a gut punch, like a knot in their stomach. Some people are aware of their stress because they feel just tension in their neck and their shoulders and their back. Some people are aware they're stressed when they just feel kind of just a flat, heavy fatigue sense, right? Some people are aware of their anxiety walking into places because they feel like just like bzz, buzzy, like a buzz. So I want you to kind of sit back and think, can I, if I really stand back, can I separate this experience for me in the ways that I'm thinking, the ways that I emotionally feel, and how my body responds? Okay, we're going to connect all three. You all do all of them. But my experience in my practice is that different people are more tuned in, are more aware of how they respond in one of these categories more than others. Some people are very aware of their spinning thoughts and less aware of the emotion, how to name or verbalize what that emotion is. Other people are very, very aware of their emotion, but can't articulate what's thinking that's driving that. Okay. So we got to think about how to piece it all together. So I want you to start to pay attention. Okay. Thinking past. So let's start with thinking. Okay. A lot. And here's a moment when, if you would like, feel free to use the chat, enter in what might be missing on my slide into the chat, because you can all see it and you'll use each other. I often find my voice is an important one. I'm a professional. I do this every day. But if I'm being honest, your voices to one another are so powerful too. You get it. You're walking the walk. So go ahead and put it in the chat. Some of the things that I hear in my office that are in the thinking of Scanxiety are, will the cancer come back? Right? Or if you are someone that is getting treatment for a more advanced stage of cancer, will my cancer progress? Like, is this treatment no longer working for me? Will I get a secondary cancer or health concern related to my treatments? That comes up. Hey, I put some pretty major drugs in my body to treat this cancer. How are they going to affect me over time? So that's a thought that people worry about. Will I recognize the symptoms? Like, can I trust myself? Will I recognize it? Will I know? Will you catch it? Will the doctor see it? Like, how will we know? See, those are narratives. Those are scripts. Those are thoughts. How will I understand what to pay attention to and what to dismiss? Like, I don't know, should I pay attention to this pain in my arm? Should I say something about it? Or is that not something I should say anything about? What do I dismiss and what do I kind of watch and wait? And what do I say out loud? I don't know how to differentiate. Am I doing enough? Am I overdoing it? So sometimes people sit in my office and they talk about, like, I don't know if I'm doing enough. Like, I still don't know if I'm eating correctly, quote unquote. I don't know if I'm moving enough. And then others are thinking to myself, am I overdoing it? Am I trying to do all these things and I'm spinning out of control and I'm kind of putting too much pressure on myself? And that's going to cause stress. All of those are thoughts. And so some of those might be yours. I don't know. Those are a lot of ones those are ones that I hear. Some of those, you might have other ones. If there are more thoughts that you recognize for yourself and you feel comfortable, feel free to add them into the chat right now. We can all kind of see that. So let's take action against those thoughts, right? I have found in my career that a lot of times anxiety is an unanswered question. So sit back and think about it. When you're feeling worry, if you dig under it, can you find a question? If we go back to the side, will my cancer come back? Every single one of those bullet points ends in a question, right? So now, as we look at this in a very thinking way, can we find answers? So is this another place where if you educate yourself on your diagnosis and in those doctor's appointments, you can say statistically, or what does the research show about when my particular type of cancer is most likely to recur, right? Is it within 5 years? Is it within 3 years post-treatment? What do we know from the data? Is that going to help you to feel varying degrees of confidence and safety as you continue to go, right? What are you looking at in these follow-up visits? I show up, I'm here, you take my blood, you do a scan, but what are you looking for? What are you looking at? Sometimes when we get concrete data for that, it helps us to know what the doctors are doing. That helps us to feel a little bit more secure and safe, right? And then a question you might ask the medical team, hey, I'm sitting at home in my house and I'm wondering, when do I call you? Is it appropriate to call? Do I tell you every single time I feel this way? And ask the doctor, when should I contact my medical team? Like, should I call you when this happens? Should I wait? What would they say? I don't know what your doctors will say to you, but I think that's a very, very valid question to ask. Another very valid question, and hopefully many of you have been through survivorship clinics or survivorship kind of follow-up, getting a survivorship care plan that has told you specifics about this particular type of chemotherapy could put your lungs at risk. So we're going to watch them in these ways. This particular chemotherapy could have damage or could be something that we need to be more mindful about your heart. So we're going to watch you in these ways. Do you know that? If you're having questions about how will my treatment affect me in the long term, that's a great question to get some data around. My treatments, did they put me at risk for any future health issues? How are you going to look at that? What options are available to manage pain during follow-up procedures? So I'm aware that this is coming up and I'm really spinning and I'm having a lot of worry about discomfort and I'm worried I'm going to be in pain or I'm not going to be comfortable. What are you going to do about that? Is that a valid worry? Ask the question. If I do have discomfort or pain, who do I talk about it with? What's available to me? Do you see how these worries are often questions? And if we can get answers to those questions, it might help settle that feeling. People a lot of times walk out of those appointments and they're like, now what? I've got the abyss of time, right? So it's a very, very valid question to say, when can I expect to get the results? And will I hear them from you or will they show up in the portal? And if they show up in the portal, how quickly after that will I hear from you? Will I hear from you if everything is good? Or will I only hear from you if things are a concern? What can I expect? Right? That's a very valid question. What is my worst case scenario? Then what? Okay, so what they mean by this is that sometimes I work with people in my office. I'm going to just flash ahead and see what I've written here. Okay, yeah. I sometimes work with people around answering their what ifs, which is going to be on my next slide, which is why I just took a peek there. Their what ifs with what is, getting very concrete as opposed to kind of getting lost in what ifs, right? Let's come back to what you concrete, black and white, know for sure. Right? Sometimes that kind of keeps our thoughts in with guardrails, gets us back in our lane. I will never forget. I had a client once who came back to me. It was a man that I was working with, and his wife was dealing with breast cancer, and he was really struggling with anxiety. He had a history of anxiety, and this was really taking it toll. And he says to me, Julie, I am trying to do the concrete what is versus what if, and it's not working for me. It's not helpful. It's not working. And I said, okay, no problem. How are you sitting in front of me? What have you done? What's working for you? And his words to me were, I just went there. I just went all the way to the worst case scenario. I just kind of went and took myself down that train of terribles. And I said, and how was that? He said, what he learned, and now I use this with my clients, is that sometimes, and I don't know how you are, sometimes if we follow our worst case scenario, and we come up with a concrete plan for what would happen, it's sometimes settling. In fact, there are many conversations I have with people in the week before their scan when I know they're rumbling with what if it's a recurrence. And I said, and if it is, then what? Well, then I'm going to talk to my medical team. I'm going to learn the options and we're going to start to figure out the next plan. Okay. Then what? Well, then I'm going to reach out to my friends and my family, and I'm sure they're all going to surround me and they're all going to be there, and we're all going to kind of figure out what I need to get myself through that. Then what? Well, then I think I'm going to kind of begin to fill up my fridge, and I'm going to get ready, and I'm going to talk to my employer. And so I guess what we do in that process is we discover that even if the worst case scenario were to happen, you don't fall off a cliff. There's still a plan. There's still a path. There's still people. You're not alone. There are still options. And we figure out exactly what that future self needs to keep moving. And then once you've kind of explored that, come right on back to here we are on October 18th at 12:30 in the afternoon, and we're not there. You're not there. We just did a little experiment to see what would look like and come right on back. And sometimes my clients have found that that's actually helpful to just let themselves go, understand those concrete action plans, and then come back. Scanxiety is normal. Let's look at this. What else can you tell yourself? So you can take those what ifs and you can say, what else? So I have this pain and this ache in my shoulder, and I'm really worried because the last time that there was something wrong, I showed up with like a pain or an ache here. And I'm worried that that is showing the progression or that's showing recurrence. And I know that that's what it is. Okay. Could there be more truths? When I say what else, could there be more truths to this? Well, if I'm being honest, I also worked in my garden all day yesterday. And I could be feeling that. Or I was lugging around that huge bag filled with all those books back and forth to my office or to wherever I was going. And maybe that's what it is. Or, I got out of bed the other morning and I remember I tweaked myself in that. So can we come up with some what else, right? It doesn't take away that fear, but it's just turning the lights on in the rest of the room. What else? Could there be more truths? This worry is telling me this. Can you turn what if into what else? Is there a different way of interpreting the situation? And then this is that bullet point that I was talking about the last time. Can you replace those what ifs with what is? So now we've done what if to what else? What if to then what? And what if to what is? What is? Well, I'm worried that my cancer is going to come back. 3 months ago, all of my scans showed that everything was normal. There was no evidence of disease. My blood work was good. In the meantime, I have felt more energy lately. My hair is growing. I am feeling kind of less neuropathy. So that's signs of healing in my body, right? Those are actually happening right now. I have concrete evidence. Can you come back to that black, what you know for sure? And that's your test results from recent follow-ups to balance that. Acknowledging signs of healing like hair growth, strength, energy. And then another thing that you have that is very real, and I say this to my clients when they worry about recurrence, think back to when you were in the throes of active treatment. That was big. You had major treatment. Big, you took a significant treatment plan to get rid of the cancer. That was not for nothing. Right? So you did have a major treatment to get rid of that cancer. Trust that, remember that. And list the lifestyle decisions that you make to support your health, such as diet, exercise, sleep, meditation. So in the midst of this, I know also that I am working really hard to move every day, and that's really good for my body. So I am taking control and I am doing the things that I can to support and help my body. Those are other ways to kind of balance that what is and what if. I'm going to just check in the chat there and see what's written there. May I take a safe period of relief from treatment and doctor appointments because my mind and body seem to need it. So that sounds like a question that you have when I asked people to add more questions that contribute to their Scanxiety. I need some relief from this. I need to parachute out of it for a little bit, but I'm worried that I can't, that won't be safe for my long term. Can I do that or no? So you need to get a concrete answer to that and then adjust. Thank you for adding. That's another thought that comes up for people. And it can be that feeling of like escape. I need to escape from this and I'm not sure if it feels safe. Okay, so that's all that thinking. Now let's go to feelings, which can feel like this. Feelings can cloud in and just overwhelm us, right? And there's some names to those feelings. Do you know what feelings you're having here? Again, you can add to that chat. I welcome anybody to what other feelings come up for them. These are ones that I hear a lot in my office, but maybe you have some other feelings. One of the things I notice is that all of us could probably have the homework of expanding our feeling word vocabulary, right? So we have more words to choose from when we think about how we're feeling. In my office, I'm going to reach, you're going to see me reach, hold on. In my office, I'm reaching over to my chair. I have this sitting right by my desk. You can't see it. It's a wheel, but what it is it's called a feeling wheel. And sometimes when I'm sitting in my office with my clients and I ask them $1 million question from a therapist, how does that make you feel? How are you feeling? How does that make you feel? That's what all of us therapists do, right? Or at least that's the perception. And my clients have a hard time describing it, or they're using the same word again and again. I say, well, let's look at this word and see if any other words come up for you. And they're like, oh yeah, I am feeling out of control. I'm feeling kind of apathetic. I'm feeling indifferent. I'm feeling a bit nervous. I'm feeling, where's another one? I'm feeling empty, grief, isolated. So many more feeling words that we have. And the reason why it helps to expand our feeling word vocabulary is because it makes the ability to care for ourselves or to communicate to people who want to support us a little bit more nuanced, right? So there's might be something I do that's different when you feel lonely as compared to when you feel sad. Initially, they might feel a bit the same, but if we're able to kind of say those differences, we might meet that unmet need in a bit of a different way. So might be one of the things so now I'm giving you 2 pieces of homework. The first piece of homework was, how do your stress show up for you in your thinking, in your feeling, and in your body? Can you begin to take notice? Watch yourself. How does it work for you uniquely? Cultivate a habit of noticing. And then the second piece of homework I'm going to have is to challenge you to grow your feeling word vocabulary. Can you use more words to describe how you're feeling? Because that can help you better take care of yourself. I always tell clients, let's greet those feelings like a visitor. We live in a culture, and I talk a lot about it in my work and in my talks with survivors of toxic positivity, right? So people feel they feel heavy, they don't feel good. And a lot of times externally, sometimes people around us say, you're going to be okay. You got this. Life doesn't give you anything you can't handle. Chin up, you just keep going. And all of those things may be valid, and that person might be well-intended, but in some ways it minimizes or dismisses the depth of the distress that we're feeling, right? Now, at the same time, I think we also do toxic positivity to ourselves. We look at ourselves in the mirror on a really rotten day and we're like, why can't I get it together? What's wrong with me? Like, come on, get moving. Right? And we also dismiss and minimize our own feelings, right? So what I want you to do in this noticing of yourself when that distress shows up in the room is to greet it. All right, I am waking up this morning and I am not firing on all 8 cylinders or 6. I don't know what model you have, but I'm not at my best today. I have got that feeling of worry because I know my scan is coming up. And I have to be honest with it, that worry is just going to walk right along with me today. Now, in the midst of that, I'm still going to try and make breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I know I've got a meeting with this person or later today, and I'm going to try and be present with that. And I also need to get some laundry done. But I'm going to be honest that this worry, emotion, this feeling is with me today. So I'm going to need to lower my expectations a bit. I'm going to probably need to move slower. I might, in the close inner circle relationships in my life, clue them in. Hey guys, I'm feeling a little impatient today, little worried and concerned. I've got kind of amped up feelings about this scan that's coming up at the beginning of next week. So just know that, work with me today. It would help me to have partners and collaborators. right? So you can greet it and recognize it and let it in, as opposed to pushing it out and like, I'm fine, I'm good, because you're not really good. And then that's going to show up later when you lose your patience and you snap off at somebody, or you just kind of melt and you feel exhausted at the end of the day. So being honest about how we feel is an important step in caring for ourselves through that day. Give that feeling your attention. Now, when I think about this, it makes me think that when we ignore how we're feeling or we don't notice it, unbeknownst to us, or whether we're aware of it or not, that feeling can drive the bus, right? We are a little bit being ruled, but we're reactive from that feeling. We're kind of shooting from the hip, right? So if you get triggered and you feel angry or you feel overwhelmed or you feel worried, and then whatever you do with that feeling is a reaction to that feeling. I'm going to retreat. I'm just going to go away. I'm not going to call anybody, or I'm just going to numb out and just sit on my social media feed and lose hours and hours of time. Or I'm just going to go to the Doritos in my pantry and bleh, right? I don't know what that is, but we kind of let that feeling drive the bus. We're stressed. We're feeling the distress of that. As soon as you notice it and name that feeling, we do this really miraculous thing in our brains. And I'm going to get a little nerdy with you because I kind of dig it, because I love this. But the neuropsychology of this is that your stress response, that fight, flight, or freeze that you get when you get triggered or feel stress and anxiousness, that's triggering your limbic system, which is in the oldest part of your brain, which is way back here, right? That's when we feel fight, flight, or freeze. That's when we kind of get defensive. It's when we get reactive. It's when we kind of retreat, constrict, or when we just numb out and paralyze and we're just kind of walking through our day in a bit of a haze, right? And we're not completely present and attentive. When you notice that and you name it, I am feeling overwhelmed. Now, that's different than saying I am overwhelmed. I am overwhelmed is not leaving any space for your healthy self. I am feeling overwhelmed says I, Julie, this very capable person, am currently feeling overwhelmed. Leaves some room that I could feel a lot of things. Right now, I'm feeling overwhelmed. I am feeling overwhelmed. I am feeling irritated. I am feeling impatient. Now, it takes some skill, I'm not going to lie, take some skill and some muscle to be able to notice it and then to name it. When you name it, you draw a line from that limbic system part of your brain all the way up to this part of your brain, which is where your language is located in your prefrontal cortex. That's where we have language in words. So you say, I am feeling overwhelmed. I am feeling irritated. You know what else lives up here? Your judgment and your impulse control and your decision-making and your ability to regulate that feeling. So as soon as you name and you use language and words to say, I am feeling stressed, I am feeling anger, I am feeling lonely, then we've created just a bit of distance between the feeling and your ability to think about it and make a choice for what you're going to do to take care of yourself. Okay. Isn't that kind of cool? I kind of think that's cool. Maybe it's just me. But so I would cultivate that skill of noticing it. Noticing is first, noticing the distress. Remember, it's showing up in one of three ways. It's actually showing up in all three, but I don't know how you notice it. Notice your distress, name it, create a little bit of space, and that's where you're going to move and take care of yourself. All right. If we ignore how we're feeling, if we push it out and say, I'm not feeling that way, I'm actually A-okay, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm good, I'm fine, then we're not really being honest. And then we're not able to meet those needs. Okay. Oh, there's so much happening in the chat. I'm going to read it. Is it a little weird that I'm going to read it out loud? I'm going to read it so that we all hear it, but I won't use names because I know we're thinking. Okay. I love that someone in our group is saying this is helpful. Yay. Thank you for validating that. Appreciate that. For me, I think a lot of the heaviness comes from looking at these feelings as permanent. It helps to recognize them as temporary visitors, right? Amen. That's impermanence, right? That everything is constantly changing. And I too love the imagery of a visitor, because what do all visitors do? Leave, right? They leave, they shift, they move. It kind of begins to make it feel like there are waves to this. And I tell people all the time when they come to my office, I don't have anything in my drawers. I don't have anything that's going to take this feeling away. And in fact, that's not the goal. My goal is to not have a bunch of catatonic happy people going through your lives. That's not normal either. It's a little manic, a little weird, right? Healthy coping is the fact that your feelings and your experiences do go up and down. There are moments of distress in this life. There are moments that are not comfortable. And coping is the capacity to surf that, the capacity to have the skill.
Is it frozen?
Yes.
No, I think look, is my internet, was it a little frozen there for a second?
It's frozen for about like 10 seconds, maybe. So if you just, whatever you said, just repeat.
Okay, I'm going to repeat it. And guys, I'm sorry that happened. I did just get a little note that is unstable. Just hang with me.
Thank you so much.
How incredibly helpful that I just talked about waves. So my connection today is going to go in waves. Just hang with us. We're going to be right here together. So I'm noticing there's another thing in this chat, just to make sure I understand. I accept the feeling, but keep going with my daily duties to not stay in that feeling. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about that. I'm glad that you wrote it in there. Yes, and I'm going to say yes, and you notice the feeling. You're not yourself. It's uncomfortable. Not all feelings and experiences of stress are created equal, right? So there and I think that self-care is a balance. It's everything about mental health and your emotional, mental well-being is a balance. There are times when you might need to cut yourself a break. Take a mental health day, stay in bed, watch TV, do a movie, just check out from the world, make some tea, and just give yourself permission to not be okay. And exercise self-compassion. It is understandable. I feel this way. This is so much for me. I am struggling today. And today I need to kind of just be compassionate with myself and lay low. All right.
We'll give her a minute. Obviously, it's hers.
So self-care can also mean discipline, right? It can also mean that today I need to get outside for a walk. I've been laying low all week, and today I need to move my body. Today I need to connect with other people. You know who's in charge of that? You. So part of self-care and coping is recognizing, what am I needing? I'm needing to cut myself a break today. And I'm needing to give myself permission to lay low and to escape and to kind of retreat. Or you know what? I have to be honest with myself. And I've been doing that. And I need to connect with other people. And I need to get up and I need to take a shower and I need to get moving. And that's what I need. So to answer your question, it's not black and white. Nothing about coping is all or nothing. It's paying close attention to where you are and what you need. But it might stand to reason that feeling of unsettledness could walk alongside you in days when you have to show up at work or connect to a lunch meeting with a friend or walk the dog or get those doggone weeds out of the garden, whatever it is. That feeling of distress might live alongside you on some days. Okay. So it's a bit of a balance. I'm going to keep moving here. Radical acceptance. So this is radical acceptance. So I don't know if you know this concept. I just used the word impermanence. Now I'm using the word radical acceptance. Both of these terms are part of kind of mindfulness culture. And if you think of being mindful, being present, being in your right here and now, radical acceptance is the concept that you resist fighting. That a lot of times worry plus resistance equals suffering. So if something is if we're resisting the fact, the session before this is a perfect example. I just finished my session before my time with you. And it's a young woman that has finished her treatment for Hodgkin's. She's done. And she's eager to try and get back to life. I don't know what that means. It's filled with questions. It's filled with uncertainty, but she's trying to figure out how to begin to rebuild. And her husband's father is in the hospital dying. And so she's stuck at his parents' home with him, supporting him. And while she's, of course, there, it's making her feel so restless and anxious about just wanting to move forward and conflicted about being there, right? There's conflict there, but it is what it is, right? So we have to let go that this is the reality for right now and find meaning and find kind of something to anchor in that present right now. We can spend so much time lost in our perceived future, whether that's fear or pressure or like I'm not getting where I want to go and how do I get there and I'm missing out, or kind of like I'm concerned and having fear. Or we can ruminate and spend so much time like I should have done this. I regret that I didn't do this. I feel guilty that this happened, right? And in doing both of those things, we're squeezing out our present. Our mind is living either in the future or our mind is living in the past, and we're squeezing out our present. And the present is what's building who you are. It's where your relationships are. It's where the things you do that give you purpose and meaning and joy and contentment and accomplishment and capability, right? So sometimes when you recognize my mind is parachuting out, I need to bring it back to what's right in front of me and get right connected to right now. Let go of the ideas of how things should be, right? Cancer survivorship could be filled with shoulds. I should be eating in this way. I should be moving my body in these ways. I should be, stopping to smell every rose and thinking, the perspective that I've learned and gained from having been a cancer survivor. I should be bigger, right? Like I should be doing something with this. Let go of those shoulds so that you can pay attention to where you are. Give yourself permission to feel exactly how you are today, right? Because that's how it kind of feelings are data. They help us understand what we're needing. And radical acceptance also allows you to acknowledge the way you do feel right now is a result of a long string of events. It makes sense. Mm-hmm. Sometimes in my office, I begin my session with a reality check. Come in, tell me. So what I'm hearing you say to me is that you not only are, in your survivorship of cancer and trying to figure out your identity now and what's changed and what's lost and what's available to you, but it sounds to me like you've also got teenagers and you've got to get groceries and everybody wants dinner tonight. And your husband is really stressed in his job. And your sister is terribly uncomfortable in a stressful relationship. And she keeps calling you and you don't know how to talk to her. So there's a lot on the table. No wonder you're feeling overwhelmed. No wonder you're feeling upset. No wonder you're feeling confused and lost. That feeling makes a heck of a lot of sense. So sometimes if you put it all on the table and look at it, it gives us permission to be like, well, no wonder this is so heavy right now. And then we can take compassionate authority to care for ourselves. Okay, so what am I going to do? Okay, question in the chat. Worry plus resistance equals what? Worry plus resistance, fighting it, equals suffering. And whatever way suffering means to you, suffering could just mean the buzz of anxiety and distress and unsettledness, right? So when we sometimes we can get caught in a fight with our hard feeling. Let go of the fight. The hard feeling is there. We can't change that, but we can at least begin to care for it outside of the fight. Okay, this is your body. So first, remember, we did the narratives in your mind and your thinking, and then we were just talking about feelings, and that our feelings are data, and we need to know our feelings and be able to allow them some space. They're honest. Now, what do we do about our body? Okay, because remember, stress shows up in your body too. I think it can show up in headaches and fatigue. It can show up in your stomach and show up in shoulders. I don't know what it is for you. If you're writing notes, maybe you take a moment and you think, where do you feel stress? Write it down. What does it look like for you? Sometimes people feel stressed because they're restless sleepers or they have a hard time falling asleep. Oh, look, I've got all this animation here. Okay, who is caring for you? Slow down. I often tell people when they begin to recognize the stress in their body, it can be counterintuitive to slow down. We feel like we've got to fix it. We've got to respond to it. We've got to do something with this feeling, right? To change it, to soothe it. There's something active that has to happen in order to feel more relaxed or to feel differently. Counterintuitively, how can I begin it? Then maybe this is my next piece of homework, that when you feel that amped upness in yourself and in your body, step one, slow down. And when you slow down and you get calm, and whatever getting calm and getting grounded looks like for you, that could mean breathing, getting your feet on the ground. It could mean going through your five senses. I don't have this on this slide, but I'll give it to you. That sometimes I help people to kind of get grounded, to get quiet by doing 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Have you ever heard of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1? I'll outline it. And maybe Jillian, if you don't mind, as I say this, you can put it in the chat. That way people can see it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. When you're feeling stressed, 5, we're going to go through your senses. Can you, A, name 5 things that you see? So let's use our vision. Name 5 things you see. That's going to be real easy. Like I'll do it right now. I see my plant. I see my coffee cup. I see my lamp. I see the cars outside on the street. I see my sofa. 5 things you see. It happens fast. 4 things that you hear. I hear my clock ticking. I hear my phone just buzzed. I hear the cars on the street. And I hear voices in the hall. 3 things that you feel. And by feel, now we're not talking emotion. We're talking physical touch, like your senses. 3 things that I feel. I feel my sweater on my skin. I feel my feet on the ground. And I feel like the temperature of this room. It's a little cool. 2 things that you taste. I can still taste the coffee in my mouth from this morning, right? And I don't know what you can think about that. And then 1 thing that you smell. Now, as you notice, as you go further down that list, it gets harder and harder, and it demands more and more of your attention, right? And in the process, it's also bringing you to the exact right now. So sometimes I use the metaphor. I saw somebody else in the chat say they like the imagery and the metaphors that we're using. So I'm going to give you another one. Sometimes I use the metaphor of our attention. Think of your attention like a flashlight. And if your attention is shining on your worry, your unanswered questions, your what ifs, right? Then that's leaving you feeling all of this distress in our bodies. When I just had you do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or take a deep breath and connect to your breathing, my effort and your effort would then be to turn your flashlight, your attention to your body. And that's going to anchor you back to now. So sometimes we can turn our attention to our body in that way. Sometimes we can turn our attention by turning on music. Woo! That just got me back in my here and now. Making a phone call, call a friend, make a phone call to a friend. That just turned my attention away from the spin back to right now. I don't know what's going to do it for you. Some people read. They like say, I just get cuddled up with a book and I can get like lost in a book and I can turn my attention totally to that story. Some people aren't able to focus on a story and that doesn't work for them. Some people listen to a podcast. So if you find yourself caught in the worry wheel, and you've maybe done the thing of like figuring out your questions for your doctor, doing the what if to what is, doing all those things, but you're still in that worry wheel. Well, then it might be that we need to turn our attention. How can we turn our attention to something else and find some calm? All right. So that's where it kind of comes back to. You can take that feeling, name it. This slide is kind of summarizing a lot of what we've talked about. Are there questions within that worry? Are there assumptions that you've created that you need to test? There, what else? Then what? What is? What work to observe your understand your needs? I've been saying a lot, that almost final bullet point. I've been saying a lot that our feelings are data and that it helps us to know what our needs are. As you walk away from our time together today and kind of chew on this information or watch yourself, this is deeper. So it's going to take some reflection. But I believe that many, many times our uncomfortable feelings are signposting. They're sending us a message about some unmet need. What is that? I don't know. So I feel maybe some degree of irritation and annoyance when my house is chaotic and busy because my need is stillness and ease. In this moment, I just need stillness. I need quiet and ease. I might get annoyed at somebody or get frustrated because I am needing their respect or their consideration or their partnership. I might be feeling just really anxious and worried because I'm needing security and stability, right? That's valid. You're allowed to have those needs. Now, you've got one strategy for meeting that need. If I don't ever have cancer, again, that would meet that need of stability and security. I don't know if that's realistic. What are some other things that might contribute to meeting that need I have for stability? I don't know what that would be for you, but something to begin to think about, right? I have an unmet need there. How do I meet it? What's another way to meet it? Let's see, do I have another slide? I do. Oh, look, I did put 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 in here. I don't even know what slides I've got in there. Look at that. These are all ways to come back to your right now, traveling back to right now. So we just talked about 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I've actually just mentioned a lot of these. I got ahead of myself. So I'm going to keep moving because I'm looking at our time. I want to be mindful of that. This is the last slide that I have. And it's a way I often leave these groups and times is be gentle with yourself. There are days, I love that somebody said in here, even if I'm not feeling great, do I just keep moving? There are days when we feel better than others. Am I right? I mean, could that be the case? And sometimes that's another strategy I do with my clients is they come into me with a lot of distress and I'm like, I am hearing you. And I believe you. I always believe you, right? I believe that this is not comfortable and that you're struggling and you're worried about your struggle. Let's circle this date on the calendar. Okay. So when you have a particularly heavy or hard day, note it, make a note of it. Maybe you can begin to do a little research project with yourself, rank it. Like I'm on a level 5 today. Or I'm really not feeling great. October 18th, not a good day. Really hard, really worried, overcome by fear. Giving myself permission to retreat and to just kind of lay low today. And then I want you to watch. How are you in a week? How are you the next day? How are you in a month? What I watch sometimes is people are like, gosh, and then I did feel different a couple of days later. Or I didn't, in that moment, it was so hard to believe I could feel different because when we feel distress, we're biologically programmed to hear it, right? It's what keeps us safe in the big world, right? So it's hard to imagine you could feel any different. So do a little recircle that day, make a note of it so that you're able to begin to see your own waves. And then that helps us trust the moments that don't feel as good, that we will make it through those moments. Try not to ignore them, notice them. I have on this slide, talking with others often helps us work through our concerns and our uncertainties in a very organic way. You've come to this group. Peer-to-peer groups are amazing because you sit in the presence of other people who get it and are walking it. And we haven't had a lot of time to talk with one another today, but I hope in other spaces you can find others where you can sit in the bottom of the well, you can say how you feel, people can listen, and as you talk, it just begins to unravel itself. talking about cancer can be complicated, right? So most conversations with other people or with one another are not a one-shot deal. Don't put pressure on yourself. It's an ongoing dialogue. All right. I'm going to stop my share. I'm going to see if I see all of you. Oh, I do see some faces there. I've seen in your chat. That's what I've got for today. I will, Jillian, if anybody asks, because people will immediately ask, can they have the slides? Yeah, totally. I will make sure that Jillian has my slides and that she can disperse them to all of you.
I wanted to share, Julie, that Cynthia wrote, this is one of the best, if not the best sessions ever. And I couldn't agree more. I think this was amazing. Thank you so much, giving practical tips, normalizing what a cancer survivor experiences and just feels daily and prior to scans was just absolutely perfect. So just thank you so very much.
Yeah. The more you practice these things, I call it going to the mental gym. You're building those muscles and you'll get better and better at it. That's what survivorship is finding how to live with this that lives in the background.
Thank you so, so much. Everyone have a wonderful rest of your day.
Take good care.
Julie, thank you again.
Mm-hmm.